So here is Alodar, aka Aloe. And I know it's been a while since his last video. He's just been hanging out in the field, going through some growing spurts. And he feels a lot stronger now. So I have the saddle and the saddle pad set over there, and I let him see it. He's also had a couple of sessions lunging, kind of getting back up into things. And he's also worn surcingle a couple of times. So I just wanted to go through a little bit of my groundwork and then just letting him see the pad. And again, he's pretty good about this stuff. Like, he's used to having his blanket put on and stuff like that. But again, I like to introduce it first before I put it on. And put it on, take it away. Because he is an interesting horse, because sometimes he can be a little like quiet, but he internalizes. So while he's good and he lets me do things, I do have to make sure that I do give him the time to actually process. And so just playing with that pad again, back on, off and on, not an issue. So that's pretty good. I'm just going to let him walk around with it on. Changing directions. Just so he gets used to the feeling of that weird thing on his back. And then I'm just going to give him another minute here. All right, now it's the saddle's turn. So I do the same thing and just let them sniff it. I think it's important to let them kind of see it. Let them sniff it a couple of times. And then gonna work on putting it on. And I'm not gonna really change versus like if it's the tarp or whatever, if it's the saddle, I'm just gonna have the same feeling about it. And just kind of throw it up on there on him. And he's not worried at all. Make sure I'm wiggling it around. And he was really good about the girth kind of flipping down. And I'm going to work on putting the girth on. And I like to always kind of, especially if I have a more nervous horse, take my hand and kind of rub along the elbow, kind of right in the channel of the girth. Sometimes grabbing the girth scares them. Obviously you won't see that with Aloe, but sometimes that motion of your hand kind of touching, that gives them a little preparation for the girth coming, and you won't get them so worried about it. But ideally, because I've worked with the surcingle first, that, the thought is he's already comfortable with being girthed up. So that shouldn't be an issue. But sometimes it can be. They get worried. So now I did not cinch it up super snug. I like to make it, tight enough, and then I'll ask them to walk around. And then I will go and tighten it up again to make sure then we get a little bit more snug. Sometimes you have to be careful right when you do that, because you do have one that's a little bunchy, that they'll jump on top of you. So just making sure staying on that left side and not like in front of them. So again, just letting him go through the motions of having the girth tightened and walking forward. So that's all going really well. Now I'm going to get him to move his feet a little bit. And just changing that direction. Now working him up into the trot. This lunge line that I have, it's actually a driving line, so the cotton is pretty light and can be pretty flimsy. So sometimes I have to put a little bit more motion into it to then get a reaction, because he is quiet. So sometimes then I ask and I have to up that energy. So he popped into the canter and actually held it together, which was pretty good. Now he's just into the trot. So I like to use the Western saddle. I have people ask. I do ride in English tack. Like, I am a 3-day eventer, but I do think the Western saddle is a very useful tool. I like to use it for variation, and I also like to start my younger horses in it, because it is like flappy. It does make lots of sounds. It has, the leather straps on it that can bounce around and touch their bum. So I think it's good for them. So there he went into a very good, I said the word whoa. And just coming in a little closer to the camera. Now to change directions. So here in a second, he's going to kind of want to turn in, and I just flick the rope back at him a little bit so he stays out. And that was just enough to kind of push him over the edge into the little buckies. So just in that moment before, and this is why it's always so good to video, that I was able to see where my shoulders kind of came in a little bit towards him, but still I wanted him to stay out, and that's why then I had flicked the rope. And in any case, it's good for him to kind of be able to accept that and be willing to go forward. So even though he got a little bit stuck, now he's moving pretty nicely forward. Now we're going into the canter, and that's kind of where we get a little stuck. So there I'm going to add the pressure, because when they go to buck, they want to kind of, it's going against moving forward. So you're going to see I'm going to up my pressure anytime I can get them into the canter. And again, this rope doesn't have a lot of weight to it, so I have to kind of create a little bit more energy. And then I asked for the yield, and that was very good. So now I'm going to let him sit here for a moment, because that was a lot. That was a lot for him to process. And work on going out. Sometimes he gets a little stuck. And then I noticed he was a little nervous about the rope, so I just went back to show it to him again. Gave him a bit of a rub. I don't want him to be nervous about the tools or anything like that. Sometimes you just have to create a little bit more energy. And it can be sometimes difficult on the ones that don't want to go forward, like sometimes how he can be. But now he's moving quite nicely. So when I ask him to go forward in the trot, I give voice cues first. So 1 cluck is to walk, 2 clucks is to trot, and then the smooch sound is to canter. So that was actually really good. And into a whoa. So that was really nice. I was really pleased with that. And again, I want to make sure I give him a second to kind of think about things. Taking those deep breaths. And if I can get a lick in the chew, those are all things that I want to look for. But that was, that was a fair amount of stuff. So it's important to kind of give him a little bit of that time. So we're just going to stand here. And make sure I give him a good rub and a nice pat. So now working again at the walk. And then into the trot right off the voice cue, which is nice. Again, I always like to train the voice cue. And there he thought about stopping, so I had to increase the energy, making sure my body's tall and straight. Now the left side is his weaker side. Obviously, the right side was much easier for him. So he's popping into the wrong lead, but kind of at that moment in time, I just want him to go into the canter. And there, he finally got the left lead. And horses can be very much like people, right-handed and left-handed. So there's sometimes with the younger ones, we have to help them, get a little stronger on their weaker side. I'm just working on getting him to get a little bit softer. And then I ask for the whoa. He reminds me a lot of Fledge as far as like he has a good little stop button in there that I can help create, and just naturally he does. So again, I'm going to bring him back in and just rub him all over a little bit here, moving the saddle around, making some noise, doing some things. He handles that all pretty good. Then I'm going to switch because I was pretty happy with how he was on the ground. And I like to keep these sessions pretty short. This was max 20 minutes. And that included like the original groundwork and everything like that. So when they're good, I like to try to keep the sessions nice and short. So I'm just going to finish up here with working on getting on and off. He wants to kind of wiggle, gets a little nervous. That's okay. And I tell him it's okay. And then I have gotten on him bareback and ridden him around bareback, but this is the first time of getting on with the saddle. So then I noticed that we were by the lunge line. I don't want him to scare himself, so we're going to move back over here. Do a little circle. And so, he just was getting a little nervous when I would come here. And that time he stood well. And then I asked him to draw back to me. And then you saw there I was rubbing my foot all along sometimes. Again, like I said, if you kind of bump that elbow, that can make them nervous, and that was nice. He kind of came into me for a rub. And now I'm going to go on to the other side. And I think it's important to let them kind of walk around. So I like to do a walk circle, stand, get on and mount. And so on the right side, I am not as quick-footed as I am on the left. So you saw there I put kind of like my knee in. And I do this with all my young horses. I like to do both sides. But then when they're super green like this, I will tend to get on the left side and, I'll work that. And then as they get more trained, then I also then go back and working on the right side because, again, I'm slower. But they have general concepts, so it tends to work for me. Everybody's different. And I swung a leg over. So that was really good. And give him a nice rub. So So now going on to the right side, I'm going to pat the saddle a little bit. And he was pretty good for me getting on the right side. And I'll pop off the left. So I thought that was pretty good. And thought that was a good place to end. I'm just going to loosen up his girth. And I was pretty proud of Alo for his first work with the saddle on.